And you're talking about it's naturally what this work is, and at times in aspects, and it is about letting yourself grieve. There's, just to say a couple of things, I find it useful to think of this work as two aspects that are very complementary, and they're both necessary. And let me know if the internet's not as good, but it's, and I didn't name it this way, but I took this naming of growing up and waking up. And so you could say ultimately it's all about growing up, or you could say ultimately it's all about waking up, because in a sense they're the same thing. But I would describe waking up as seeing reality, what is beyond or prior to thought. And waking up is, growing up is what we do with that, how that changes us, and how we change as humans, and how we change in what we do in relationships, and in a sense how we live. And in a sense you can't fully grow up unless you wake up, and vice versa. It's two kind of, you grow up a bit, and then there's a waking up ceiling. And so we can wake up progressively a bit more, and then we need to grow up to integrate that new understanding of reality into our way of living. And so this is more of a progressive, we grow up a bit, wake up a bit. And sometimes what can happen is there can be a waking up that's more total, more kind of a big leap. Waking up can happen in that way. Growing up cannot. There's no growing up suddenly, because growing up requires changes in a dimension that's called a dimension of this reality, which is the body and the mind. And the body needs to, things need to move that have a different rhythm. The nervous system, the heart, the body, the mind, everything needs to kind of adapt. Versus waking up, it's instantaneous, because it can be partially, it can be totally, but it's instantaneous, and it's outside of time, it's outside of the mind. And I feel that what you're describing is, yeah, what you're describing is kind of a really genuine deepening in that growing up aspect. And it's really, really beautiful to see. And I actually have a position where I think growing up is actually the ultimate. It's what matters most. And waking up is just a requirement along the way. But what matters is being adults, being loving, open, in service to life, to ourselves. Yeah, so I'm just hearing this kind of maturing, the something settling into this deeper, more open adult loving heart in relationship with yourself, with your relationships, with your life. And if we get too attached to the promise of waking up, which there's no promise, because it's now, it's never anything other than now, but in our ideas of what it is, I would say there's no way to realize that unless we can be with our pain, be with our grief, be with our fears. And then that which we're constantly trying to avoid no longer becomes a threat, which is just our feelings and our vulnerability. I like that you laugh, because it means you see it. And in a sense, we make safe our own heart, and we find that our home is safe, which is our heart right now as it is. There's this beautiful, beautiful image in Christianity, which is Jesus or Christ with his chest is open. He has opened it with his hands, took his heart out, and has put it forth to the world. And it's been stabbed and it's bleeding. And he's holding it. And it's basically, it's the bleeding heart of Christ. And the image to me communicates a truth of the heart and of reality, which is there is never more pain than what the heart can take. And so in that, there is the revelation of a safety in the pain, a safety in feeling. And it's a discovery. Whereas before knowing this, we try to protect it because we think it's going to overwhelm our heart. And in that protecting, we suffer. Because the heart is actually prior to the pain. It exists prior to, and so it cannot be harmed. But this can be discovered or realized, and we only really realize that when we take the risk of opening and feeling. Julian just reminded me the other day of a quote from the Course in Miracles, which I'm probably going to misquote, but it says something like, that which is real cannot be harmed. That which is not real does not exist. It's a different style of communicating the same thing. But I like the that image of the heart because it's less abstract. Yeah, I understand that. It doesn't mean that it's going to feel like that, because it's only that until you fully realize it. In a sense, there is an end to that, because it's the ending of the belief that it's too much. And we only come to the end of that belief when we question it and allow ourselves to feel when it feels like it's too much. When there's a fear that this is going to overwhelm us. When that's happening, it's because we're questioning that belief. Otherwise, when we're fully in that belief, we have activated our avoidance mechanisms. We've shut down, we've closed our heart because it's too much. But there's a deeper instinct which calls probably all of us, but some of us, for some reason, become more in need of listening to this calling to, in a sense, explore what if I can go there and it's okay. Mm. And we will often feel like we didn't have a choice. We were kind of forced. We just couldn't avoid it. And it was harder to be shut down. It was harder to avoid. Life just didn't give us a chance. But it's all a kind of wisdom. And we cycle, right? Because we come to a point where something activates where we just want to break. It just, we come to an edge, but then we revisit that. And that's this kind of cycling of growing up, stepping back from an edge. We wake up, in a sense, we look at our beliefs of that which is threatened. There's all different ways to talk about this in different traditions, but it's basically seeing through our beliefs, seeing them as beliefs versus as reality. And then from that newer, deeper understanding, we can, in life, open up to flow, to trust the river, you could say. Until we may hit another edge of distrust and fear. And then we can see what are the beliefs there. What is it that's actually at risk? What's the real danger? And ultimately, it's the imagination of what we think we are that's in danger. But we don't experience it as an imagination of what we are, what we think. We experience it as I. What I am is in danger, and the body and the mind react to that with all of the activation of fear of the end of I. And there's extreme versions of that and more subtle versions of that in an ending of a relationship or being told something difficult, a big change in life. The let's call it the full revelation is to see that that which we thought we are isn't real. Is to see that that which we thought we were was an imagination, was a thought construct. And then what we are is impossible to put in words because it's beyond words. And so you could say we are nothing, we're emptiness, we're, you know, you could talk about it and it's been talked about in a million ways, but the point is the thing that can be said directly and more accurately is that we realize we are not what we thought we were. And then that which we thought we were can no longer be threatened because we have seen through its unreality. And this is the kind of thing that it will sound and look very different, but it's the same thing that Advaita talks about Buddhism, Christianity, at its essence. Buddha nature, the kingdom of heaven, non-duality, para-Brahman. In Advaita, the more traditional, it's very rational actually, and they say the first realization is I am Atman, and Atman means self, but it's you could equate it to consciousness. It's to see I am not thought, I am consciousness. But then the second realization is Atman equals Brahman, which is, let's say, totality, the universe, everything. And so it's that which I am is not separate from everything. And that's the kingdom of heaven, which I don't use those descriptions because my experience is that heaven and hell kind of disappeared. It's just seemed to be imagination. There is something which is beyond that kind of description. But I get the language. I get that it's peaceful beyond understanding. And it's more satisfying than anything. And safety isn't even a question. And it doesn't matter what the thoughts are doing, what emotions are happening. it's completely untouched. Yeah, it's tricky to point out. For example, it's not an experience. You could say it's what experience is made of. It's not a state, it's not an experience. And it's the most obvious thing because it's prior to experience, it's prior to thought. It's not hidden. It's just, it's this always, all the time. And it's completely incomprehensible, even to me, how the hell it happens that it seems so obscured or veiled. And then it's not. And nothing changed, but everything changed. And I remember in the darkest times of suffering, which I had a really dark personality, a lot of pain, a lot of terror, a lot of grief, suicidal in my teens, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, really dark. Um, and I know that what I'm talking about was completely un, unavoidable, unmissable, even then. It's not something that began. So that there was a shift where before and after there was peace. There was always peace, to call it something. And I describe this just to possibly help question some ideas. How it can be communicated and transmitted is a mystery to me, but I try.